I'm 99 years old, and I just learned how to use TikTok last week. That's how she introduced herself, with a grin, a wink, and a phone in her hand. Her name is Clara Mitchell, and she doesn't walk slowly. She walks intentionally. When you meet her, it's not the wrinkles you notice. It's the energy. The way she leans in when she talks. The way her eyes still sparkle like she's got something up her sleeve. And when you ask her the secret, she doesn't say spinach or sleep or good genes. She leans in and says, "Honey, it's attitude. Everything else is just background noise." At 99, Clara doesn't see herself as fragile. She still tends to her garden, tells off squirrels stealing her tomatoes, and sends voice memos to her great-granddaughter that somehow go viral. But let's be honest, we've all been taught to see aging as a slow fading out. The background music softens, the lights dim, the world forgets your name. And yet, here she is, Clara, sitting in the sunlight, cracking jokes, wearing lavender lipstick, refusing to act her age because, as she says, that number ain't the boss of me. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If it's not the years that wear us down, what is it? Could it be that somewhere along the way we let the world tell us what old is supposed to look like, move like, feel like? And could it be that they're wrong? In this story, we're going to walk alongside people who never got the memo that life was supposed to slow down after 80. We'll sit with them in their kitchens, watch them pull weeds with bad knees and better attitudes, and we'll hear, in their own words, why the most powerful muscle they've ever used is their mindset. Because Clara's right. A full life isn't measured in candles on a cake. It's measured in how brightly you're still willing to burn. You don't feel old until someone calls you adorable for carrying your own groceries. That's what Gerald said. 98 years old, sharp as a tack, and twice as stubborn. He laughed when he told me that story, but his eyes held something deeper. That quiet frustration people feel when the world tries to shrink them down into something smaller than they are. It happens more often than we think. You hit a certain age, and suddenly everyone wants to help you sit down. They speak slower, they pat your hand, they call you sweetie. Like your worth is something fragile now. But Gerald didn't sit down. He climbed onto his roof last winter, against everyone's advice, to fix the antenna so he could watch Sunday football without static on the touchdown. Why? Because, as he says, my knees are old. My mind isn't. That's the heart of it, isn't it? Aging is inevitable. But how we age, that's something we still get to decide. The mirror can show you numbers, lines, sagging skin. But it can't show you purpose. Can't measure humor. It can't see the fire in your belly that says, I've still got things to do. Studies have shown that seniors with a positive attitude toward aging live up to 7.5 years longer than those who view aging as a decline. Not because they're stronger or richer or healthier, but because they wake up with a sense of curiosity, of meaning, of presence. They don't pretend time isn't passing. They just refuse to let it define who they are. So what's more powerful, the date on your birth certificate, or the way you greet the morning? Clara still wears perfume. Gerald still dances with his granddaughter in the living room. Not because they're in denial, but because they remember something the world forgets. You're not old when your hair turns white. You're old when your dreams stop waking you up. And they're both very much awake. If I don't water the roses by 8 a.m., those squirrels start giving me dirty looks. That's what Clara said, with a straight face, holding her little green watering can like it was a sacred duty. It's easy to laugh at that, but it's no small thing. Because when you're 99, people stop expecting you to matter. No more alarm clocks. No more deadlines. No more children needing your hands, or a job needing your brain. But the truth is, the soul still needs to matter. Clara's garden isn't just about flowers. It's about rhythm, ritual, the comfort of still being in charge of something that blooms because she showed up. It gives her a reason to swing her legs out of bed, even when they ache. It gives her something to talk about when her granddaughter calls. It gives her something to be proud of. And purpose doesn't have to be grand. For Gerald, it's delivering the newspaper down the hall to his neighbor who can't walk as well anymore. For Ethel, it's baking 2 pies every Sunday, one for the church bake sale, and one for the security guard who always compliments her hat. And for Sam, 101 years old, it's feeding the birds at exactly 6:15 every morning, because he swears they know when he's late. Purpose doesn't fade with age. But sometimes we forget to feed it. We start thinking purpose belongs to the young, to the busy, the working, the ones still building. But some of the deepest meaning comes later in life, when the noise dies down and we can finally choose what matters. Not because we have to do something, but because we get to. So what's yours? Maybe it's knitting scarves for shelter kids. Maybe it's writing postcards to strangers. Maybe it's just remembering the name of every single nurse who walks through your door. Big or small, purpose gives shape to the days. And that shape is what keeps the spirit upright. Because when you know why you're waking up, you're already winning. I don't go to parties anymore. But every morning at 9:30 Marlene knocks. We drink coffee on the porch and complain about the weather like it's a sport. That's what Gerald said, stirring his decaf with 2 sugars and a smirk. And he's right, sometimes all it takes is one person. We talk a lot about loneliness in older age. And for good reason. It's heavy, it's silent, and it sneaks in slowly. One missed call, one forgotten birthday, one more friend who moves away or doesn't wake up. But connection doesn't mean being surrounded. It means being seen, being known. Clara has 3 people she calls her daily vitamins. Her neighbor Rosa, her niece Lily, and the mailman, Paul, who always knocks twice and tells her which song he's got stuck in his head. He says, "They keep me upright." And they don't even know it. Researchers say loneliness in seniors increases the risk of heart disease, cognitive decline, and even early death. But just one consistent relationship, even a light-hearted one, can buffer those effects. You don't need dozens of friends. You need one person who remembers how you like your tea. One person who notices if your porch light stays off too long. One person who still says your name like it means something. And sometimes that person has 4 legs and wags its tail. But that's another story. The truth is, real connection doesn't always come from people who've known you the longest. Sometimes it's the person you met just last year who remembers to ask about your knee surgery. Or the little boy next door who waves every afternoon when you check the mail. Connection is made in the small gestures repeated often. The coffee, the nod, the "see you tomorrow." Because we don't stay alive just by breathing. We stay alive by belonging. And the older we get, the more sacred that circle becomes. So maybe it's time to make a call, knock on a door, share a memory. Not for them, for you. Because even at 99, the heart still needs someone to sit on the porch with. I don't have legs anymore, but I've still got rhythm. That's how Ruth introduced herself the first time we met, rolling confidently into the community center gym in a red wheelchair. Her scarf tied like a headband, jazz music already playing on her little speaker. She was 88 when she lost both legs to complications from diabetes. The doctors said she was lucky to be alive. But Ruth didn't feel lucky. Not at first. She felt broken. Forgotten. He says. People stopped asking me what I could do. They just assumed I couldn't. But then one day she watched an old Fred Astaire movie. And for some reason she started swaying in her chair. Just her shoulders. Just her hands. And she remembers thinking, well, that still moves. So she danced. First it was just for herself. Quiet mornings. Slow songs. One hand on the kitchen counter. The other outstretched to a partner only she could see. Then one of the nurses noticed. Then the nurse brought a friend. Then 2 other women from her floor asked if they could learn that arm thing she did. Now, every Thursday Ruth teaches Sit and Sway, a wheelchair-friendly dance class at the senior center. She says the point isn't to move like you used to. It's to move like you can. Because adaptability is not about pretending nothing has changed. It's about not letting what's changed define who you are. You lose your sight. You learn to hear the world differently. You lose your strength. You learn to rest without giving up. You lose someone you love. You learn how to carry them in a way that lets you keep walking. Resilience isn't loud. It's not dramatic. Sometimes it's just the quiet refusal to stop showing up for life, even when it shows up differently than before. Ruth doesn't dance like she used to. She dances like she never thought she could. And maybe that's the kind of grace we all need. Not to bounce back, but to grow forward into something new. Because getting older will change your body. But how you respond, that changes your life. They asked me what kind of cake I wanted for my birthday. I said one with 99 candles and a fire extinguisher. That was Gerald again. Same deadpan voice, same twinkle in the eye. He delivers these lines like he's been practicing for years. Truth is, he has. Every morning he sits at his window and writes a new joke. Not for an audience, just for himself. He calls it mental stretching. And maybe he's onto something. Because growing old can be heavy. The body aches, the phone rings less, the stairs get steeper. But humor, that's the gentle rebellion. It's how the spirit reminds the world. I'm still here. And I've still got punchlines. Clara says she keeps a notebook of the funniest things she's heard at the senior center. Her favorite. I asked my niece what they wanted for Christmas. They said, a new body. She laughs when she tells it. And when Clara laughs, you feel it ripple through the room, like music from a forgotten record. Here's the thing. Scientists have studied this. Laughter lowers cortisol, boosts immune cells, and improves circulation. It literally makes your heart healthier. Not metaphorically, literally. But beyond the biology, laughter does something deeper. Gives you back control. When everything else feels fragile, humor reminds you that you still get to choose how you see the world. Fall becomes a story. A wrinkle becomes character. The silence becomes a setup. And you're still delivering the punchline. And the beauty of aging is, you've earned it. You've been through the fire, the losses, the long nights, the near misses. So when you laugh at 99, it means something. It means, I'm still standing, even if it's with a walker. So no, laughter doesn't erase pain, but it does sit beside it. And sometimes it even holds its hand. Clara says, you know why I laugh so much? Because I've cried enough. And maybe both are sacred. My granddaughter thinks I'm wise. I think I just remember more of my mistakes. That's what Clara said as she folded a letter she was writing by hand, on yellowed paper, in cursive only half her family can read. She writes one letter each month, addressed to her future great-great-grandchildren. She calls them her hellos to tomorrow. She doesn't know their names yet, but she wants them to know hers. We talk about legacy like it's something carved into buildings or written into wills. But for Clara, legacy is a smell. Cinnamon in the kitchen. It's the rhythm of a lullaby she sang to her daughter, who sang it to her daughter. It's the way her family still slices apples with the same little knife her husband used in 1963. Legacy isn't always grand. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a recipe passed down, a phrase repeated, a story retold enough times that it becomes a thread in someone else's soul. Gerald doesn't talk about his medals. He talks about how he taught his grandson to sharpen a pocket knife. Carefully, so it's useful, not dangerous. That boy is now 43, and still calls every year to ask how to fix something with his hands. And Ruth. She teaches her sit and sway students not just to dance, but to feel beautiful again. She says, I'm not leaving behind steps. I'm leaving behind dignity. Because legacy isn't about things. It's about impressions. What settles in the heart after the moment has passed. At 99, you begin to understand something most of us miss. That the best parts of you won't be your accomplishments. They'll be the way someone else says your name. The laugh they copy from you. The courage they find in your survival story. Gerald once said, I don't want to be remembered for what I did. I want to be remembered for how people felt when I walked into a room. And isn't that what we're all trying to do? Leave the room warmer than we found it. Leave the people better than we met them. So no, legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you build into others. While you're still here. People keep asking if I'm afraid of dying, Clara said, eyes soft, hands folded in her lap. I'm more afraid of not living while I'm still alive. She didn't say it for drama. She said it like someone who's made peace with the mirror, but still argues with the sunrise. Like someone who knows that age isn't a countdown, it's a platform, a vantage point. At 99, Clara still plants seeds, still signs birthday cards, still memorizes the names of every nurse, every neighbor, every grandchild's new boyfriend, even if they don't last long, because she understands something most people forget by 30. That living fully isn't about chasing excitement. It's about presence. It's the sound of your own laughter in an empty room. It's letting tears fall without shame. It's waking up and saying, today still counts. We're taught to slow down, to accept limits. But the truth is, there are people out there, like Clara, like Gerald, like Ruth, who refuse to let the world shrink their life just because the candles don't fit on the cake anymore. They still write, still dance, still argue, still flirt, still hope. Because they know that if your heart still stirs at something, a bird call, a grandchild's voicemail, a good cup of coffee, then life isn't done with you yet. It's easy to believe that the end of the story is a quiet one. But sometimes the most powerful pages come last. I don't know how many mornings I have left, Gerald once said. But I plan to use every one of them up. And so should we. Because whether you're 39 or 99, you're not too old to laugh, not too old to learn, not too old to love, not too old to matter. You're just not done yet. So don't dim your light for a world that forgot how bright you are. Instead, turn it up.